All right, folks are streaming into the room and welcome. We are so glad to have everyone with us today. My name is Joe Swimmer. I am the Executive Director of Episcopal Parish Network, and we are pleased to present this digital workshop today on recurring giving and establishing new spiritual habits with your congregation in this season of Lent and on into Easter. It should be a fascinating conversation with our friends and partners at Vanco. Vanco is going to give us some direction on the recurring giving tools that they have, as well as some theological thoughts around it through one of their affiliates that will introduce himself here soon. We are pleased to have everyone with us who is joining. Please, if you can, put your name and where you are dialing in from into the chat. Use the chat for any questions or comments for the team. And we will look forward to seeing many of you in Houston in a couple of weeks, March 6th through 9th, for our 39th annual conference. It's going to be terrific, a lot of great lineup there. And we will have our friends from Vanco with us, so you can come to them and get a fabulous emery board. That is their giveaway, which I will tell you is my favorite giveaway of any of the giveaways. So please, if you haven't made your reservations yet to join us in Houston, do so. The emery board itself is worth it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over now to Abby, and thank you all again for joining us today.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Joe. We are so excited to be here with you all today. As Joe mentioned, we are going to be spending our time together talking about recurring giving and how that can help with establishing new spiritual disciplines. But before we get into our content for today, I do want to give just a quick overview of our agenda for our time together. As I mentioned, and as Joe mentioned, we're going to start with some reflections on Lent, and I'm going to introduce Jenny and Paul Luter here in just a minute, who are going to be taking us through those reflections. And then we are going to spend a little time talking about how recurring giving drives discipline, looking into some data as it relates to recurring giving. We'll give you some actionable tips on how you can create a 40 days of giving campaign using some of the tools that we have here at Vanco. And then we'll close with simplifying Easter promotion with Vanco's Easter Toolkit before we open it up for questions. So again, as we go through our presentation today, if you have questions, drop those in the chat and we will be addressing those from there. So I am now so excited to be tossing things over to Jenny and Paul. I will let them do a quick introduction of themselves and then take us on for some reflections on Lent.
Hi there, I'm Jenny Luter.
I'm Paul Luter.
I'm a former pastor. He's a ELCA pastor. And this is our family. You can see the star of the show right there in pink. That's Annika, our 8, almost 9-year-old. She is delightful. And this is a picture of us last Easter at our church. So we are, can you go to the next slide, Abby? We're thinking, reflecting on Lent. Obviously, you all are deep into Wednesday services, Sundays, and all sorts of extra activity. And so we just want to spend some time thinking about this season and how it connects to the act of worship of giving. So Abby, if you go one more. As we think about Lent, there is this need to let go and release things. If you've ever had a time where you can think back, where you had to let go of something, give something up. The beautiful thing, of course, is when we see something greater come from it, but we don't always see that, or it takes a while. Maybe you're in the waiting time of what that exchange, that releasing will bring to you. And of course, my hope for you is that you will see the benefit, not just in your own growth, but maybe there's something greater that God has for you. Let's read Mark 8:34 through 37 together and think about that idea of an exchange. He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any wish to come after me, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who will lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? So here, we're talking about what we release, what we let go. And in the same way, obviously, we are working our way towards Good Friday, where Jesus took up his cross in exchange for what we get because of Easter. We're also marching towards the resurrection, where Christ's exchange gives us this promise of hope, of love, of life. And so in the same way, we think about this time leading up through Lent, of those things that God may be asking us to give. Over to you, Pastor Paul.
I'm gonna move the
Yeah, go
computer
ahead.
here. I'm barely on the screen. There we go.
There you go.
Hi everyone. So when my dear wife, who is awesome, asked me if I'd say a few things related to giving in Lent, I thought, oh, pastors give during Lent. We give the rest of the time as well, of course, but giving during Lent. And I began thinking about some imagery related to this. And not only am I a pastor, but I'm also a writer, which means I'm doubly employable. Not. Anyway, so the image that I had was when I was thinking of the question of why do we give during Lent? We invite people sometimes to give things up. This year, I'm not serving anywhere, so I'm giving Lent. I'm not giving Lent up, but I am giving up certain things. And I started to kind of look at my hands and realize that when I give, then my hands are open, my heart is open to what God wants to do with these open hands and open heart. So that the question is, how do I live out the call in handing over and giving? How am I available for what God wants to call me to, the relationships that God sends me toward, the ways that I can be available in the wider community and world, because I have decided to let go of my agenda and make myself available for what God is up to in our midst. And by our, I mean all of us. I think in Texan speak, it's not y'all, it's all y'all, because it is not just a few who are called to this, but really all of us. We are called to be open, to hand over, to release, to relinquish, so that God may busy us with something altogether new. When Jesus died, in Luke's gospel, he says, into your hands I give my spirit, I release my spirit. In Holy Communion, in the Eucharist, right, we lift up our hearts, we hold them up, we let them go into the vast mercy and love and grace of God. When we gather together in gatherings like this, we are trying to imagine what God is calling us to be and do, so that people may grow even more deeply into the love and grace and mercy of God. So although I kind of snickered when Jenny first asked if I would talk about giving and Lent, I thought, oh, that's schmaltzy, but it actually works. Ta-da! It is, in fact, this movement, this opening up, this releasing, this relinquishing, this handing over that makes all things new.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. I'm gonna hand it back over to Abby, my coworker. I didn't say this earlier, but I manage the partnership with the EPN. I work at Vanco. It's a real pleasure to be with you all and to share this with you and with my husband. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jenny and Paul, for those great words. Lots of good takeaways from there, which we'll bring back here in just a few minutes. But as we talked about on our agenda, I want to take just a quick minute to talk a little bit about how recurring giving can help with driving discipline. And the data that we're going to be utilizing as we facilitate this discussion is actually something that is just recently been released by Vanco. And this is our Vanco Giving Index Volume 1. You can see it on the screen. And we'll have a QR code at the end of our presentations. You'll have an opportunity to download this full piece. If it's something that you'd like to take back, have an opportunity to look through more thoroughly. And it's something that we'll be continually updating over the course of this year as well. But our giving index comes from an analysis of Vanco's church giving data starting back in 2019 through 2023. And in this first version, what we are doing is analyzing data in 3 core ways. We're looking at average electronic donation volume per church, average total annual donations per donor, and then the percentage of recurring donations that a church on average sees. And our purpose in creating this asset was to help churches benchmark against their peers, but also to have a resource that they can utilize as they are goal setting, whether that's for a specific season within the church or for the 2024 year overall. So I want to start with our first way that I mentioned we analyzed this data, which was, again, looking at the average electronic donation volume for churches. And the chart I'm showing you on the screen is actually a subset of the data we looked at. And this is for what we consider our medium-sized churches. So all of the churches that are represented in this graph have an average weekly attendance of anywhere from 100 to 499 AWA. Again, in our full churchgoer giving index, you'll have an opportunity to see the same chart for churches overall, as well as those that are under 100 average weekly attendance or larger churches over 500. But what we see as a core takeaway from this chart here is that electronic donations are here to stay. And this is apparent not only in our medium-sized churches, but for churches of all sizes. When we look back from 2019 to 2020, you can see that there was significant volume, especially in the medium-sized churches that first year as we went into the pandemic. From there, things have stabilized. And while most churches are seeing a slight decline in their budget year over year, we can see that we still have significant growth in the amount of donations that are coming through electronically in comparison to the first year that we analyzed this data back in 2019. So we'll chat about a few ways that you can make sure your church is prepared for Easter as we get into some of our later slides. But a big part of what we're going to be talking about is, again, making sure that you have an electronic giving option and that it is very visible and easy for members and visitors to be able to access. All right, so the next chart that we're going to take a look at here, again, highlights the average total annual donations per donor by average weekly attendance. So we are, again, highlighting those churches that are in that medium size range, but you do get to look at the full spectrum within this chart here. And I always think this is so interesting. With our first look at the data, those medium-sized churches, 200 to 499, have our highest annual donation average per donor. And where we have a hypothesis of why these churches have such a high average donation amount per donor is they've really hit that sweet spot between engagement and technology adoption. So again, they have all those great programs in place to build those relationships, build their membership, and they're pairing those with giving tools that are easy for their members to engage with and also for them to interact with as well. And another core part of how we see that average donation volume amount per donor be higher in those medium-sized churches is when we take a look at the percentage of electronic donors per church that are one-time versus recurring donors. The highest percentage of recurring givers is in those churches that are 200 to 499 average weekly attendance. And again, a lot of this connects to that thought process that churches within that size band have the technology tools available to them, but also too, they've figured out the right way to message and build those relationships with their members in a way that's encouraging them to set up that recurring donation. And you may be wondering, recurring donations are great, but are they really worth the additional effort and the additional asks in terms of what my church would receive? And the answer that we see from our data is a resounding yes. Recurring givers donate more than one-time givers over the course of a year and significantly more over the course of their lifetime. And a lot of that doesn't necessarily come from their intent. But a few of the things I wrote down while I was listening to what Jenny and Paul had to say were these ideas of relinquishing, letting go, and opening up. And I really think that's a big part of what recurring giving can help members do, in the sense that they have that ability to relinquish the requirement of making sure they've got cash and check on them every Sunday, that they're setting up that donation or in service each week, and gives them that opportunity to sit down, think about what their intent is, think about the impact that they want to have, and set that gift up so it is able to have the impact that they're intending to give. So taking a look at just a few of these charts here, you can see that especially in the small and medium-sized churches, a one-time donor or a non-recurring donor versus a recurring donor, the annual donation value is over 100% difference. So there really is that benefit in taking the time to have those conversations, explaining the benefits of recurring giving to your members, and then walking them through the process if they have questions on how they can set that gift up. So that's a great transition into sort of where we want to lead our conversation next. So as you are thinking about different ways that you can engage with your parish, one of the things that Jenny and I were chatting about as we were preparing for the webinar was this idea of a 40 days of giving campaign. Now, this is something that you can run during Lent, but it's also something that you could utilize year round, again, as an opportunity for you to rally members around this idea of a recurring giving campaign. And we're going to walk through what this can look like with our Vanco tools here in just a second. But when you're thinking about building a 40 days of giving campaign, there are a few core items that I really encourage you to sit down and think about, as well as talk with your leadership team about. The first is when you are introducing your 40 days of giving campaign to your parish, make sure that you are explaining the why behind your ask. Talk about the impact that you're planning to have with this campaign and the funds that you're raising. And additionally, be specific about the intent for a recurring donation. When you make that ask them to set up whether it's a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly donation, again, to help you as you are moving towards the specific campaign. I always encourage, if you have an opportunity, and we here at Vanco have some great examples of parishes that have done a phenomenal job with this, but provide a tutorial on how to make a gift, whether that's pulling your online giving page up on the screen, creating a slide that you can share on Sunday. Provide the tutorial again, walking through and sharing just how simple this process is. And then I always encourage any of the parishes we work with to do this, but make sure you are sharing the results of the number of individuals who participated, but also to the impact of those donations raised after the fact. What that does is it provides a great opportunity when you're sharing that update for those who did donate to understand the impact that they helped to make, but also to can provide that inspiration for those who may be newer or didn't donate to want to be a part of that next ongoing campaign from there. So we're going to take just a quick segue from our presentation here, and we're going to hop over to Vanco Valley Community Church, which is our demo teaching church here at Vanco. And we're going to do just what we talked about on the prior screen. And we're going to walk you through a tutorial on how you can set up a recurring donation if you were to host something like a 40 Days of Giving campaign with Vanco. And then I'll also touch just quickly on how simple it is to create that campaign within our online giving page. So Vanco Valley Community Church, this is a great resource. Before I hop over to our giving page, I just want to reiterate, if you are looking to update your website or are creating a website for the first time, this is filled with a variety of questions and content that can help you as you're shaping what information do I want to include on each of my website pages. So take some time if you have it, walk through our About Us, our missions page. And again, ask yourself, are the questions that are being asked on this page represented on my website? And if not, what information do I want to share about each of these sections to help somebody who's new to our parish get to know us and what's important to us? But we are going to click on this purple Give Now button, and that is going to take us over to Vanco Valley Community Church. And as I mentioned, we have our 40 Days of Giving campaign that is set up on our giving page. I'm going to click our Contribute button, and you're going to notice this takes me into our giving opportunity where I'm able to learn a little bit more about what we're doing over the next 40 days and what any of the funds that are raised through this campaign are helping to support. So again, we've got this great graphic. We have our short description down here, and I'm gonna flip over to the right side of the screen, and this is where I'm going to be able to create my gift. Now, when we initially started talking about this campaign, Jenny and I, again, our thought process behind this was, how can we tie this into Lent and that idea of making recurring giving a part of our discipline? So our idea here was we want something that's going to be small and manageable that we can do on that recurring frequency during the Lenten season. So to keep the math easy on me, what we are going to do is say, we're looking to donate $5 a day throughout the season of Lent. So I'm actually going to do a $35 donation. And when I come into recurring, I'm going to do this on a weekly basis. So again, at the end of each week, it's going to do my recurring donation that ties into that $5 a day that I am dedicated to giving to the church and having that reflection moment on each and every time. I'm going to have our start date be the 23rd. And again, I'm going to set this up to be a 40-day donation. So I did this math ahead of time. 40 days from Friday is going to end me on April 30th. So again, I'm setting that intention. I'm relinquishing that requirement to go in and set up that donation each and every day, but opening myself up to that great discipline and reflection that I'm going to have throughout this season. And again, looking forward to hearing from the church the impact that this gift is giving. So I'm going to add this gift to my basket, and you'll notice before I continue along to my payment, I'm going to be provided with an opportunity to engage with additional giving options. This is a great opportunity if maybe I want to purchase flowers for Easter Sunday, set up a donation to my Sunday offering. Again, all of those are options that I could add to my basket in addition. But for the purposes of today, we're just going to continue along to payment. Once I'm on the screen, you're noticing that I'm given an option to select how I want to make my donation. I happen to have a credit card already saved on file. That's going to fall under the credit or debit option. I could add an additional card if I'd like to, or I can flip over and add a checking or savings account in order to make that gift. For ease of today's donation, I'm just going to use the card I have on file. And then you'll also notice that I have elected to help cover the processing fees associated with my donation. So what this means is for my donation, Vanco is going to add an additional, in our church's case, 2.85% on top of my gift each and every week. So it's going to come out to $36 for my donation. What this is going to help do is make sure that the full gift that I'm intending to give, that $35, is going to be given to the church, again, for them to make an impact with that 40 days of giving campaign. But I, as a donor, am actually going to get credit for that full $36 a week donation on my end of year contribution. So again, great benefits across the board for both myself and the church that I am giving to. And then lastly, I'll just double check I've got the right fund, I've got the right frequency, amount, and my start date and end date are all there as well. So on my last step, I'm going to continue to review. Again, this gives me one last opportunity to make sure that everything looks good. And it'll be as simple as clicking submit. And that is going to complete my donation and send that along to the church. Now, the last thing I do want to mention before we talk about just, again, how simple it is to create this giving opportunity in Vanco is this opportunity of a share button. So if I'm somebody who maybe doesn't have that opportunity in order to give a recurring gift at this time, some of the other ways that I can get involved is by sharing out the great work that we're doing with my network. Again, this is a way for me to share, whether it's on Facebook, through email, or a text message with my community. Again, some of the great work that our parish is doing, so others have that opportunity to get involved as well. So again, this is something that is available for me as an individual interacting with that donation tile to do either from that full donation page or from an individual tile as well. Excellent. So what we are going to do now, like I mentioned, we're going to hop over to our My Vanco, which is our management side of Vanco Online, our giving page. I've already logged in and you're able to see, again, tiles are what we use as a term to describe our giving opportunities. And I have my 40 days of giving opportunity already built here. So we're just going to click into this and hit edit, again, to show you how simple it is to create an opportunity like this within our Vanco online giving pages. So our setup wizard is going to walk you through each of these 5 quick steps, but you'll always start with giving your giving opportunity a title, adding that additional detail from there. Again, this is a great opportunity for you to tell your story and to bring that giving opportunity to life. Other churches that we've worked with in this opportunity use it as a space to talk about what their intended impact is, who will benefit from these donations. If it's something they've done in the past, sometimes they find it appropriate to share past successes or what was raised historically through these campaigns. This is also where you'll have an opportunity to customize your button. And then from there, we'll move into imagery. You'll notice with our specific tile that we did, this was actually an image that our graphic designer created and something that we'd love to share with you if any of you are interested in using it in your own giving campaigns. So you have that ability to either upload a picture, whether it's from a past event or something that you've designed yourself, or we connect with Unsplash, which give you the opportunity to do a keyword search to get those free high resolution images. Again, just to draw that member or that visitor in. And again, bring your story to life through those pictures and imagery. And then the final thing that we're going to do as we're setting up our tile, this is the most important, I always think, is what we call our gift section. So within gift, this is where you're going to select which bank account those donations are going to be deposited into. You'll have an opportunity to select your frequencies, add an end date if that's something that makes sense for your specific campaign. And then we also have this custom field. So if you are creating some sort of a giving opportunity, maybe it's a memorial fund where you want your donor to have the opportunity to add additional detail, or you're asking for additional detail, this gives you that easy way to do that, all within the giving experience from there. So after we've created that giving opportunity, our last step is just going to be selecting where we want that to show up. So we showed you today just how easy it was to give a gift online, but those of you who partner with us know that that's not the only way that your members are able to give and support your causes. So you have your opportunity right from the screen to choose if it's also going to be available within your free mobile app. And then again, if you have multiple pages, which of those pages it shows up on from there. So it really is just that simple. We've gone through those steps of creating our 40-day giving campaign in our MyVanco platform, and then also to showcasing how your members and visitors would choose to participate by giving a gift, a recurring donation through that giving campaign as well. So before we answer or open it up for questions, and again, give you that opportunity to access our giving index via a QR code, I did want to take one last minute to just talk a little bit about simplifying Easter promotion with Vanco's Easter Toolkit. We know that Easter is coming up quite quickly and will be here before we know it. And many of the churches that we work with are being asked, their staff are being asked to do more with less resources. And that's always been something we've been passionate about helping with here at Vanco, which is why each and every year we take an opportunity to look at our marketing kits and figure out how we can be a resource when you are trying to share with existing members, newer members, and visitors, all the great ways that they can support your church, whether that's through making a donation or starting to engage with your church. So I've got our resource center there on the top, but I'll also have a link here in just a couple slides to our free Easter giving kit. Again, these are filled with a variety of different resources that your church can either use as is or personalize in order to fit your own branding or to help direct people in a way that makes the most sense if, again, they are looking to express their generosity while they are at service with you. And then the last thing that we'll touch on here, again, we talked briefly about Vanco Valley Community Church at the beginning, but I always think the beginning of the year is a great time for the parishes we work with to take an opportunity and look at their website and have an opportunity to say, is this presenting our church in the way that we want it to? What we are finding more and more often, and this gets especially true ahead of Easter, is that your website is the new lobby of your church. Many individuals today, when they are looking to find a place to start worshiping with, they're turning to Google and searching for churches near me. From there, they're finding your website and they're using that as an opportunity to make a first impression of if your church is something that they want to give a try and become a member of. So I always think it's a great opportunity a couple times a year to be a visitor to your own website. Put all the legacy knowledge that you have about your community in the back of your brain and ask yourself, what is the first impression that I get as I'm walking through my different website pages? If I were to be a new visitor and I'm looking to learn more about the church, is it easy for me to find things like service times, upcoming events, what missions you support, and how can I get involved? If you're going through some of those questions, and again, this is always something that I encourage you to ask individuals on your leadership team or other staff to go through the same exercise as you are. If you're finding that some of those questions are more difficult to answer than you'd like, it's a great opportunity for you to go back to Vanco Valley, have a look at some examples of other churches in your neighborhood and figure out what are some of those pieces of information that I want to make sure I'm adding. Again, just to make my website as visitor friendly as possible for new potential members that are visiting it. And as always, one of the things I highly encourage when you are going through that website review is make sure, if you don't already, that you are putting a link to your online giving page on your website. And when you go through that process of putting a link to your giving page on your website, make sure it's easy to find. It requires as few clicks as possible, and that it's something that you consider putting on your homepage as well as your footer and having it follow people throughout your website. Now, the reason why I encourage people to do this is because you never know when that moment of generosity is going to be sparked. And if somebody finds a mission of yours that they want to be able to financially support, you want to make sure that there's as little friction as possible as they're going through that process of then making that donation. So take a minute, review your website. Again, make sure it's visitor friendly. It has all that critical information that somebody is looking for, and that your giving page is visible and easy to find for when those moments of generosity are sparked. And then lastly, we did this with our Vanco tools today, but I always encourage you to take an opportunity to do this with your own tools as well. Make giving easy ahead of the holiday season. Familiarize yourself with your online giving tools. What that means, and what I always encourage, is if you are not already an electronic giver at your church, take an opportunity and give a gift for the first time electronically. Walk yourself through that process. So if somebody happens to approach you during the upcoming weeks, you're familiar with that process and can be a resource as well as an advocate for how easy that process is. Utilize a variety of different methods to communicate with your members about how they can give. We have a lot of great different methods in that Easter giving kit, which I will highly encourage, again, you to take an opportunity to download. But we know that different generations consume information from different places. Younger generations are more prevalent on certain types of social media like Instagram and Twitter. Some of our older generations are more commonly looking to Facebook or email for information. Again, you know your member base best, but how are you customizing your communication plan to hit all of those different age demographics? We talked about this with our 40-day giving campaign, but again, make sure you are making the ask by telling a story, and within that, talk about the impact that you're looking to make, what it's going to support, and then talk about how you will be following up with those results. Again, to bring that full circle story to life. And then lastly, this is something we see more and more individuals doing with their promotional materials. We've carved out space in ours for you to add them, but think about creating a QR code for your church's giving page. Again, the whole thought process behind this is how can you reduce as much friction as possible so if somebody is at a service, move to give, they have that opportunity to get to where they're looking to go as quickly as possible. So that is, I think, a great transition into our final slide, which has some great QR codes on it. So before I look into our chat for questions that have been submitted, there are two great resources that I want to make sure we have a chance to talk through. The QR code on the left is going to be our Vanco Giving Index. Again, this holds all of those charts that we looked at in the beginning, again, providing you some great materials that you can utilize for benchmarking your church against others that are currently Vanco clients. And then the second QR code, which is going to be on the right, is going to be Vanco's Easter Giving Toolkit. Again, this is filled with those free templates that your church can utilize either as is or customize with your own branding. As we go into the Easter season, again, helping you as you are building those connections with new members and visitors. Excellent. Well, we will, I'm just gonna check the chat here to see if we have gotten any questions. It doesn't look like we have, but I do just want to reiterate, Jenny and I have been just so pleased to have an opportunity to get together along with Pastor Paul to share a few reflections, not only on the Lenten season, but on some different ways that you can utilize tools, especially electronic giving, as you are looking at creating those disciplines and reflecting on this great period of time.
Hey, Abby, this is Joe. I'm just going to
Yeah,
drop in and thank you and Jenny and Paul for taking some time to go over the methodology around recurring giving and some of the tools that are available for Vanco. We are grateful for you sharing your wisdom, Paul sharing his thoughts and reflection at the beginning. It's been really wonderful, and I think you've given everybody some great ideas to think about in encouraging recurring giving, and hopefully to consider looking at Vanco and the tools that you all have available, and visiting you hopefully in the conference coming up. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
excellent. Thank you so much, Joe. We appreciate
you.
those words. And I know Jenny is eager and excited to be with you all in Houston here in a few weeks.
Please come introduce yourself if you're at EPN. Come find me. I'll be so happy to meet you.